Akash, Blake, thoughts on the 49ers re-signing nickel corner K'Waun Williams?
I'll let Blake go.
All right. So from what I know, I don't know the most about this guy. I've only seen not the most Niners games, but I will say this, pretty solid in the nickel. And then I think the main takeaway for me is that he's just another healthy guy there that if they have injuries, you're not completely caught with your pants down having him there. And if you still want to draft a corner in the early rounds, like that's still on the table too. So first off, like flexibility just with who you got there. And then second off, he's pretty solid at the nickel. So that's still valuable, with more teams having 2-3 good receivers, especially the Rams and the Cardinals. And I mean, even the Seahawks, whoever their third receiver is going to be this year, they have lots of guys. So I like the signing for the Niners, and he's not that expensive either. So you're not breaking the bank bringing him back. But those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I just to piggyback what you said. So we don't know the contractual details yet. It's a one-year deal. I imagine it's somewhere less than $5 million, probably heavily incentivized. The 49ers have really profited off of a suppressed market at different positions. First edge, and then safety. They were able to bring back Kwaski Tart on a cheap deal, we assume. And then now with K'Waun Williams. Williams was in the mix with Kansas City, then the Jets and the Niners. And I think he just took a one-year deal, familiar team, knows the system, is able to come back where he's comfortable. And then potentially in a year when the cap goes up, maybe he can strike one last deal where he can get a nice payday. As for the player, Williams is one of the, I would say, 3 or 4 best slot corners. PFF does its like yards per coverage snap. I think he was in the top 5 of that stat. He's great against the run. He's really tough in that area. And also an able blitzer as well. Solid did a good job the last few seasons calling those timely blitzes where K'Waun was able to make magic happen. So just glad to have him back. I thought that he wouldn't. I literally 10 minutes before Rap Sheet said that he was coming back. I thought he wouldn't. I thought he was going to go to Kansas City or maybe the Jets where he's from. But he's back. And like you mentioned, I think they could still draft a nickel somewhere in the mid rounds. Someone like Elijah Molden from UW, Asante Samuel Jr. from Florida State. One of those guys that can develop and potentially take over that spot in a year.
Yeah, so you guys really hit all the main points with him. Really, really good player, really solid. I wouldn't say as an individual cornerback, I just rate him extremely high in terms of his ability in man coverage, but he's just a phenomenal football player. Great tackler, sound in zone, smart. He's really physical for a guy his size. I mean, he'll take on pulling guards and take them out and stuff, which is kind of special for a guy that's 5'9", 185, 190. He's just a really tough and good football player. And so for the Niners to bring him back, especially at what we're all assuming is going to be a less than price, is, again, outstanding value for another one-year deal. And I was of the assumption that this was the guy that was gone for sure, because I thought Robert Saleh, if you notice in interviews in the past, Grant talks about it a lot with his chest thing, and he talks about the pawn is always the piece that he likes the most in chess. And I always thought K'Waun Williams was his pawn, because he used to blitz him a lot and he used to use him in a little bit more creative ways than other players, and really highlight K'Waun, who was a smaller undrafted player, as this kind of tough as nails, top 5 to 6 slot corner in the NFL. But for whatever reason, he stayed. I think it's really good for the 49ers. And I think where K'Waun Williams truly excels is in his ability to force fumbles. Since he's come to the 49ers in 2017, he has forced 7 fumbles, which is a pretty decent number for a nickel cornerback. I think that's really what he truly excels at on the field. I think that this is good. And then you guys both addressed the draft. I 100% think they need to draft a nickel corner, and it doesn't have to be one picked in rounds 1, 2, or 3. I think they can get away going the DJ Reed route again, round 5, get a tough, hard-nosed football player, maybe an outside corner who just physically can't play on the outside anymore, just like DJ Reed, just too small to play outside. And he doesn't have to play year 1 because the Niners have all their starters in their secondary starting and returned, and they're going to start next year. They just need a guy who year 2, year 3, he can step in and be their future nickel corner, because if all things go right, there's no way I think the Niners can bring back K'Waun Williams next year.
Yeah, good point.
And I was going to ask you guys this too, but if he was forced to move to the outside, would you guys be comfortable with him in that role as well? Like, say there was an injury to Verrett or an injury to the other outside corner. Could he slide over and fill that as like a Band-Aid type of role player?
Yeah, no. We saw that in the past, right? The 49ers chose to start Brian freaking Allen, this dude off the street.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately off the street. I watched him. He got toasted like route after route with Monte Parker, and the Niners wouldn't shift over to the outside. He just, like Vish mentioned, I don't think he's good as a true cover guy.
Yeah.
That's why I thought they could upgrade from K'Wan Williams during free agency. I thought they could go get a Mike Hilton or a Desmond King or someone that's just a better like cover corner, especially in Nico Ryan's scheme. But yeah, so I don't think they'd ever move him to the outside. I think they'd roll with someone else.
Yeah, that's not his game. His game isn't to be this true cover corner. His game is to be a really complete and really good football player. And he is a good player and a difference maker. The one thing I would say is you talked about how you were thinking they would upgrade. I was also comfortable actually with K'Wan Williams. Like K'Wan Williams is a baller, but I was comfortable with him leaving because the Niners have shown they can replace his production. If you look at what Jamar Taylor did last year, I didn't have the highest opinion of Jamar Taylor, to be honest with you, prior to him coming in last season, but he ended up playing really well. And actually, if you look at all of their metrics, all their advanced metrics, and if you chart both of them, there's not too big of a difference in the play between K'Wan Williams and Jamar Taylor. And Jamar Taylor was a guy they just picked up off the street, a guy nobody really wanted, and the Niners ran him through camp, and he was a good player for them last year. So I figured just like that, worst case scenario, they could bring back Jamar Taylor, they could get another guy, or they could draft a guy in the 4th or 5th round that fits this physical skill set, and he could play this smart physical style because it's not demanding on him to be this lockdown man-to-man corner in the slot the way Bryce Callahan or Marlon Humphrey or those type of guys are.
Yeah, this isn't a knock on K'Wan Williams or even like Kwaski Tart, but the 49ers prioritized, just look at who they signed right off the bat, right? They prioritized Kyle Juszczyk, Trent Williams, Jason Verrett, and they waited on guys like Tart and Williams. They let them go take their visits or meet with other teams, whatever, and they let the market sort of determine what the price point was. And if the price was right, they were certainly willing to have them back, and it seemed to be the case for both those players. So, yeah.